कर्मिभ्यः परितो हरे प्रियतया व्यक्तिं ययुर्ज्ञानिनस् परितो हरे प्रियतया व्यक्तिं ययुर्ज्ञानिनस् तेभ्यो ज्ञानविमुक्तभक्ति परमा प्रेमैकनिष्ठस्ततः प्रेमैकनिष्ठस्तथा तेभ्यस्ताः पशुपालपङ्कजदृशस्ताभ्योऽपि साराधिका प्रेष्ठा तद्वद् इयं तदीयसरसितां नाश्रयेत् ककृती So in the previous verse, in the Updeshamrit, the hierarchy of various places is being talked about. Now, from another perspective, the hierarchy of different people and different transcendentalists is talked about. Essentially, if we look at the various books that are there in our canon means those books which are considered to be like the prescribed or authorized or important books. This is different from the canon which you use in fighting. In the Vedic canon, which Srila Prabhupada has given us, we have Bhagavad Gita, which is more like a broad Vedic book. Now, practically all Hindus or all followers of the Vedas, they accept the Bhagavad Gita as a general book, as an authoritative book. The Bhagavatam is more of a Vaishnava book. It focuses on Vishnu as the Supreme. So, if we consider like a pyramid, the Bhagavad Gita is a broad Vedic book, and then the Bhagavatam is more of a Vaishnava book. And then beyond that, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and the Bhakti and the Updeshamrit, they are Gaudiya Vaishnava books. So of course, Chaitanya Charitamrita is also a Gaudiya Vaishnava book. Srila Prabhupada focused on the recommended these four books as our study for Bhakti Shastri, but especially for lifelong cultivation, he recommended the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Chaitanya Charitamrita along with Gita and Bhagavad. The four most important books, he said. So they form a pyramid, taking us from the introductory levels of general spirituality as talked about in the Vedic literature, from Bhagavad Gita, you're not the body or the soul, to the highest levels of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, where we talk about the Parakiya Rasa, the intimate love of Radharani and the gopīs for Krishna in the mood of conjugal love outside wedlock. So here, in the hierarchy, so previously verse talked about a hierarchy of various places culminating in Rādhā-kuṇḍa. Now this verse will talk about the hierarchy of various transcendentalists culminating in those transcendentalists who are utterly devoted to Krishna, and especially those who are devoted to Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī at Rādhā-kuṇḍa. So the same hierarchy now is being talked about in a different way. So let's look at this. Karmibhya parito hare priyataya. So now what is being described? First is talked about karmibhya. Now generally we use the word karmi in one specific sense, which is not the accurate sense from the point of view of the Vedic scriptures. As we discussed earlier, the meanings of words are not just frozen in the dictionary. They are dependent on usages. So actually when we talk about karmis and the Vedic scriptures talk about karmis, the karmi in the Vedic context refers to the karma kandi. Now karma, jnana and bhakti, these are three margas. And the karma marga basically talks about karma kanda. So when we talk about karmis, we generally talk about materialistic people in general. And today most materialistic people are atheistic or at the most non-theistic. God is not very important for them. There is an increasingly popular school of thought that is called as apatheism. Now apatheism means we are apathetic whether God exists or not. I just don't get into this. These apathetic people argue that who is God and whether God, what God does and what God teaches. They talk about some other world, and while talking about what happens in some other world, you create conflicts in this world. So better forget the whole thing. Now of course it's only a very, very fragmented and incomplete view of religion to consider that religion causes conflicts in this world. Religion inspires so many people to charity, to nobility, to purity, to morality, to integrity. So this is also a very positive and important consequence of religion. But when these get highlighted, the negative effects of religion get highlighted, then people become apathetic. So karmibhya, the way we use it is to contrast with devotees. Anybody who is not a devotee, we consider him to be a karmi. That's the way you use it. But in the Vedic context, karmi refers to karma kandi. So karma kandi is there, and then karma, we know there's karma and there is vikarma. So most people today will be vikarmis. Now often they are breaking the regulative principles and they are living sinful lives. So that is vikarma. There is karma and vikarma. So now here when he is talking about karmibhya, Rupa Goswami, he is not so much going outside the Vedic hierarchy. Yes, we can do that also. And in the teachings of Sanatana Goswami, teachings to Sanatana Goswami, Lord Chaitanya does that. He starts classification right from the beginning. He talks from the bottom of the hierarchy, how there are various living beings. Some are sthavar, some are jangama, some moving, some non-moving. And then among the moving there are those which have 2 feet, those which have 4 feet. Among those which have 2 feet, like that he moves forward, encompassing all living entities. And there also through that hierarchy, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu establishes how the pure devotee is the highest. So here, Rupa Goswami, Updeshamrut is not a book for new people primarily. It's a book for seekers. So even the Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, that is also something which will make sense primarily to seekers. So for seekers, that's why he doesn't go too much outside the Vedic context. Karmebhis parito Hare. So what happens is, as compared to the karmis, what happens? Those who are jñānīs, those who are in knowledge, they are better. Let's look at what kind of knowledge. This is an elaborate subject. We know that Krishna talks about jñānīs many times in the Bhagavad Gita. There are 2 kinds of jñānīs, which is, there are, Jiva Goswami talks about this in the Sat Sandarbhas. I think he talks about it in the second Sandarbha, Bhagavad Sandarbha. So basically he talks about there are Sushka Jñānīs and then there are Bhakti Jñānīs. So Sushka Jñānīs, those are dry, the speculators. So those are the kind of Jñānīs, that kind of Jnana is not very anukul to Bhakti. But here what kind of Jñānīs is talking about? So as compared to the Karmis, those Jñānīs who are Priyataya Hare, those who are favored by Lord Hari. What is the Lord Hari's favor? Lord Hari's ultimate favor is that one becomes attracted to him. Krishna is Krishna's greatest blessing. So Krishna is Krishna's greatest blessing. When we become attracted to Krishna, when Krishna enters into our heart, that is our greatest blessing. So those who are favored by Lord Hari, those jñānīs who are devotionally inclined, they are far better than karmis. So why? Because they have learned to see beyond the material world, and beyond the material world they are seeing not just to the Brahma Jyoti, they are seeing the personal absolute. Krishna talks about these kind of jñānīs also in the 7th chapter, in 7.16, 17, 18. He says there are 4 kinds of people who surrender to him. Who surrender to him. So it says Chittarvidha bhajante mam jana sukritno arjuna. So arto, jigyasur, artharthi and jnani. And then he says, Tesham jnani nityayukta eka bhaktir vishishyate eka bhakti. Among those jñānīs is very special. Eka bhakti. They are one pointed in their devotion. And then after talking about these, Tebhyo jnana vimukta bhakti parama premaika nishtastata. So Tebhyo is a comparative word. Like in English we have then, or better than, or greater than, like that then. Tebhyo jnana vimukta bhakti parama. So now the jñānīs who are also favored by Lord Hari, that means they have some kind of devotion, but their devotion is not very pure. It is mixed devotion. It's jnana mishra. But then jnana vimukta bhakti paramaha. Those who have by jnana become liberated, but after becoming liberated, what has happened? Bhakti parama. They have understood that bhakti is the supreme goal of life. So Krishna talks about this in 17:18, he talks about these jñānīs. He says jñānīs are best. And then he says in 7.19 that Bahunam janmanam ante Jnanavan mam prapadyate. So Jnanavan. So Jnani refers to one who is on the path of knowledge. Jnanavan refers to one who has become siddha on the path of knowledge. One who has become perfected. Jnani refers to the sadhaka on the path of knowledge. So Jnanavan refers to the siddha on the path of knowledge. So Jnani is the seeker of knowledge. Jnanavan is the possessor of knowledge. So Krishna is talking about one level higher, that those who are Jnana Vimukta Bhakti Parama, those who have understood. What have they understood? Vasudeva Sarvamiti. There's nothing higher than Vasudeva. That he is everything. So that is Bhakti Paramaha. They understand that Bhakti is the ultimate goal of life. So Vishwanath Thakur in his Gita commentary explains that there is the Jnana Mishra Bhaktas and there is Kevala Bhaktas. And in Jnana Mishra Bhaktas there are various levels. He says that there is, as far as Jnana Mishra Bhakti is concerned, there is Guni Bhuta Jnana Mishra Bhakti and there is Pradhani Bhut Jnana Mishra Bhakti. Guni Bhuta Jnana Mishra Bhakti means Jnana Mishra Bhakti. What does that mean? That there is Jnana which is there within the Bhakti. So now if the Jnana component is more than 50%, that is the predominant component. Now the Jnana and Karma, these are basically results of the three modes. The three modes act on the mind. And the mind means subtle body. We'll generalize it to call it as the mind over here. The subtle body creates acts as the interface between the soul and the world. And in the action between the soul and the world, the soul interacts in two ways. One is observing, and the second is acting. And for this we have Jnanendriyas and we have Karmendriyas. So those for who, now in every action Jnana and Karma both comes in. Now, for example, if I feel hungry and then I see something, there is to eat. So by Jnana I acquire the knowledge, then I go and eat it. So in one sense Jnana and Karma are there in all actions. But in Karmis, their focus is on Karma. In Jñānīs, their focus is on Jnana. That means Karmis focus more on how to do things, how to move things, how to get things. So it's not, the Karmis can also acquire Jnana, but their primary focus of consciousness, their purpose of existence is Karma, is action in this world. That's why, scientists, we do not classify them as Jñānīs. We classify them among the Karmis only. Scientists, they acquire a lot of knowledge, but the purpose of knowledge primarily is control. Control. To get things done in this world. So pure science is quite neglected. Pure science refers to science which is just for the pursuit of knowledge. Today most science is applied science. Those scientists who make breakthroughs through which technology, through which we can control over nature. So Bhakti Thakur writes in one of his first writings, it's in a very intricate Bengali. So there he compares that Western civilization appears very progressive as compared to Indian civilization. The reason for that is Western civilization has karma as its parameter of success. How much can you control this world? How much can you act in this world? How much can you move about in this world? And by this parameter of success, the Vedic civilization will appear primitive. But he says it is not necessary that is a universal parameter of success. He says those civilization which focused more on learning, on contemplating. See, Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Now, just as there is Vedanta Sutra, there are 6 systems of knowledge. So, there is Vedanta. Similarly, there is Mimamsa. So, Mimamsa begins with Athato Dharma Jigyasa. There is Shandilya Bhakti Sutra which begins with Athato Bhakti Jigyasa. So, depending on whichever system of philosophy that is being talked about, that particular philosophy has a particular focus of knowledge. So, in the Vedic context, although there are 6 systems of philosophy, the highest system of philosophy is the Vedanta. So, karma and jnana. Now, from the karma point of view, the knowledge aspect is considered to be subordinate to the action aspect. Knowledge is okay, but the purpose is action, which is true. Now we also say knowledge should not just be theoretical. It should be for application, for purification, for transformation. But in karma, the jnana is for external action. In bhakti, also we acquire jnana, but the jnana is primarily for internal action. Devotees will also act in the world, but it's also equally important to act internally for purifying ourselves. So of course this karma jnana analysis is an elaborate subject, but what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says is that the civilization that is focused more on thinking in terms of analyzing and understanding, that civilization has a different definition of success. So even the Western civilization history, the Greeks were more of thinkers. They were more Brahminical, and they were succeeded later by the Romans, who were more Kshatriyas. So they were more of conquering and ruling. So among the Greek thinkers like Socrates, Prabhupada said that he was almost self-realized. So Plato, Aristotle, all of them have their significant intellectual insights. So what is being said over here in this hierarchy? That Tebhyo Jnana Vimukta Bhakti Parama. So now on one side, the karmis focus more on action, the jñānīs focus more on contemplation. Now the bhaktas, they go beyond both of these and they recognize that the highest is neither action nor contemplation, it is devotion. And action and contemplation both are subordinated to devotion. So devotees can sometimes run around and do a lot of services. And sometimes devotees may appear as passionate as, if not more, or sometimes more passionate than materialistic people also. Prabhupada at the age of 70 was traveling all around the world. How many people are there who would travel around at that pace? There are many people who have done adventures of traveling around the world. But even from a objective point of view, after the age of 70, somebody embarking and going around 14 world tours, it is unlikely. So devotees, if the service requires, they can do a lot of karma, but they are not karmis, because the purpose is to connect with Krishna. And similarly, devotees can sit at one place and they can do contemplation. Just sit, focus and write or speak or contemplate. That is also one kind of perfection. So both are important, but both are subordinated to bhakti. So in one sense, the hierarchy is there is the hands, there is the head, and there is the heart. So the path of bhakti, the path of karma is the path of the hands. The path of the jnana is the path of the head. The path of bhakti is not just the path of the heart. Because where the heart is, the head and the hands will follow. So the path of bhakti includes the hands and the head, but all of them are subordinated and harmonized with the heart. So now, beyond this, premaika nishthas, bhakti parama, premaika nishthas. So what happens is, bhakti parama, one who understands that bhakti is the highest, that person is glorious. Now, premaika nishthas tataha. So what happens? Premaika nishtha. So one pointed faith in prema. We remember what is the definition of Shraddha that Chaitanya Charan Prabhu gives? Shraddha shabde Vishwasa kahe sudrud nishchay. What is the Vishwas? Krishna bhakti kaile sarva karma kruta hai. So that means this is a Krishna karma we don't have to do. That we don't have to do karma, we don't have to do jnana. If I just do Krishna karma, that will be enough. And antebhyasta pashupala pankaja drushas. So pashupala pankaja. So pashupala. So pashu refers to here primarily the cows. Of course, Krishna allows not only the cows, Krishna allows all living beings. So Gopala he is called. Here is referred to Pashupala. Krishna is the Lord and lover and protector of everyone. Pankaja drushas. That Lord who has lotus eyes. So to that Lord, one who is devoted, one who has actually attained prema, as Prabhupada says, pure love of Krishna is superior to that person. Now what is happening? So there are, first I talk about three levels. Karmi, then the jnani, and then after that there is the jnani who has I'll recognize that bhakti is supreme. Then beyond that, there can be many kinds of bhaktas, but those who are devoted to Krishna specifically, they are the highest. Because there are many various forms of Godhead, and all the devotees who are devoted to the various forms of Godhead, they are all liberated. They can all get liberated. But the intimate rasas are primarily with Krishna. And then above them, the gopis are exalted above all advanced devotees. So, and beyond them is Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī. So this actually verse, it's interesting that Rupa Goswami was instructed for 10 days. And Sanatana Goswami was instructed for how long? 2 months. 2 months. So all of you, you should be expert in Gaur Lila. Maharaj speaks so much about it. So anyway, it's interesting that Rupa Goswami was instructed for 10 days. Sanatana Goswami was instructed for 2 months. But if you look at the literary output of Rupa Goswami is much more than that of Sanatana Goswami. So why is that? Actually, all the Goswami's books were cooperative endeavors. They were all cooperative endeavors. It was not that any one book was written only by one Goswami. They were all writing together. And because Rupa Goswami surrendered first to Lord Chaitanya, although Sanatana Goswami is older in age, Rupa Goswami surrendered first. Sanatana Goswami considered that you are my senior god brother. So therefore, most of the books were written by his name. And then we have the certain books which are we have this certain books which were actually written by Gopal Bhatta Goswami. The Rupa and Sanatana Goswami only wrote the books, but they were published in the name of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Especially those books which talk about, say, Brahminical rituals, how the rituals are to be performed. That's because among the 6 Goswamis, only Gopal Bhatta Goswami was born in a Brahmin family. Now, of course, Rupa and Sanatana were also born in Brahmin families, but they had accepted Islam temporarily while serving Nawab Hussain Shah. Now, Raghunath Goswami, they were not exactly in Brahmin families. So that's why those books which detailed with Brahminical rituals, they were authored by Gopal Bhatta Goswami. But all these books were combined endeavors of everyone. And also, if we see, apart from apart from Jiva Goswami, Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, although they were the primary among the Goswamis, they did not initiate anyone. Because according to that prevalent Vedic standard, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not disrupt, Brahmanas were supposed to be initiators at that time. But as the influence of bhakti spread, thereafter, when Narottam Das Thakur came back to Keturi and other places, then the influence of bhakti had spread much more, and people had become much more acceptable, receptive to the understanding the glory of bhakti. So at that time, Narottam Das Thakur also started initiating. He started initiating even Brahmana disciples. So the point is that the principles are true, but the Vaishnava Acharyas present the practices according to time, place, circumstance. So Śrī Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not disrupt the existing social order. He talked about the glory of bhakti and he emphasized the supremacy of bhakti, but he created a cultural revolution by which gradually people would become more and more receptive to bhakti. Now, among them, the gopis are the highest. We see the supremacy of the gopis is talked about in which book? Again, Brihad Bhagavatamrita. So, why I was talking about Rupa and Sanatana Goswami is, what hierarchy is being talked about by Rupa Goswami in theory over here, that hierarchy is demonstrated by Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. That's why I was telling that the Goswamis wrote their books as a teamwork. And that's why actually when we want to study the books, when we study them in conjunction, then they become understandable much better. We study in isolation, then it becomes just different insights. But then when you study them in conjunction together, then it becomes a magnificent, coherent worldview. And then among the gopis, Radharani is the highest. So, now Radharani, let's look at the translation then. Now after talking about Radharani, then it talks about Rādhā-kuṇḍa. Rādhā-kuṇḍa, as we discussed from the yesterday's verse, that is the highest among the holy places. So now what is happening? Rupa Goswami talks about the 5 potent forms of devotional service. So one of them is residing at a holy place. Another is associating with devotees. So now from these, and then what are the other three? Deity worship, hearing Śrīmad Bhagavatam, chanting the holy names. So now we will see that the hierarchies are talked about in various ways. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is talking with Raghupati Upadhyay and Vallabh Bhatta in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when they are in Varanasi, he talks about how there are various forms of Krishna, and among them the Madan Mohan form, the Shyama Sundar form of Krishna, the Kaishora Krishna is the highest. Similarly, there are various books, but what is said? Śrīmad Bhagavatam is the highest. And so there are many names of God, but among them, the name of Krishna is the highest. So among these 5 forms of devotional service, there is a hierarchy also. But here, what is two of them are being talked about? That okay, we have to stay in the holy place, but the best holy place is Rādhā-kuṇḍa. Associate with devotees, the topmost devotee is Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī. So we get this double potency over here, the potency of the holy place and the potency of the topmost devotee. And in this way, it says that who will be that person who will not want to reside and purify oneself at such a place? Who then will not reside at Rādhā-kuṇḍa and in spiritual bodies are charged with ecstatic devotional feelings, aprākṛta-bhāva, render loving service to the divine couple. So now Srila Prabhupada has often this habit of integrating his purport in the translation. So that's why you will see that purport sometimes the translation becomes quite long. And sometimes if you do a literal Sanskrit word-to-word translation, then you find that there are certain points in the translation which are not there in the Sanskrit. But what is Srila Prabhupada doing? Srila Prabhupada is actually giving us a proper coherent understanding. So when the devotees spent too much, when Hayagriva Prabhu was doing the editing, then at that time, Hayagriva Prabhu was trying to make the translations very poetic. And then he was coming, Prabhupada, can I put this word like this? Can I put this word like this? That will become very poetic. So Prabhupada initially indulged him a little bit. Afterwards he said, the translations are not very important. Actually, there are so many Gitas available and more or less the translations are okay. And he said, with the purport that are important. So he said, you just don't bother so much about translation. Take any standard translation available. Take Radha Krishna's translation and just put them over there. How can you do that, Prabhupada? That will be plagiarism. So that will be, plagiarism, taking somebody else's words and publishing in one's own name. So Prabhupada said, how can that be plagiarism? These are not Radha Krishna's words, they are Krishna's words. So, you cannot, Prabhupada's idea was that, okay, you are translation you cannot copyright. Because it's ultimately Krishna's words. So what Srila Prabhupada did was, when there was technical translation to be done, he would have his Sanskrit translators do the translation. And then in the last days, when Prabhupada was giving the Bhaktivedanta purports, so Dravida Prabhu would do the translation and present the translation to Srila Prabhupada. And mostly Srila Prabhupada approved the translation, and based on the translation, he would give the purport. He would just dictate the purport. So Srila Prabhupada was not very, technically finicky about these things. So his focus was on giving the essential message. So the essential message is how we can purify ourselves, how we can make spiritual advancement. So Prabhupada often integrates his purports into his translations. And actually if you see, often in in conversational English also, sometimes we may say, if somebody speaks something which is not very clear, let me translate that for you. Now translate doesn't necessarily mean from one language to another. Sometimes something is a little more difficult to understand. Suppose somebody speaks something in computer language. We don't understand what is computer language. Something is wrong with the hardware. Sometimes you look at the error message that has come. The error message itself is in such technical language, you can't understand the error message only. So then it's in English only, but it has to be translated from that technical English to non-technical English. So that's what Srila Prabhupada is doing over here. Now, let's look at this purport. So, Prabhupada starts first of all with this the basic point of karmis and jñānīs. So he starts with this famous verse from the Vishnu Purana. Let's look at this verse. Vishnu Shakti Para Prokta Kshetrajñākya Tatha Para Avidya Karma Sanyaya Tritiya Shakti Rishyate. So here Prabhupada is telling that, Prabhupada, what is the context? This is talking about his three Shaktis. There is the transcendental energy, marginal energy and material energy. So the point he's talking about based on this is that how the various living entities are at different levels in material existence. And ultimately we have to move from the external energy to the internal energy. So how do we move forward from that external to the internal energy? So Prabhupada talks about, okay, we don't have this. So what Srila Prabhupada is doing over here is that there is this marginal energy which can be situated in the external energy or the internal energy. So that hierarchy which Rupa Goswami has talked about, Prabhupada is explaining it in terms of these energies. So the karmis are situated in which energy? External energy. And spiritual progress basically means moving more and more towards the internal energy. So we always remain marginal, but we can actually move closer and closer towards Krishna, and we can move from the margin towards one side or towards the other side. So we can move towards Krishna. So Prabhupada is explaining hierarchy in terms of those who move forward. So the karmis are too much into the material energy only. The jñānīs, they are starting to come out from the material energy. And like that, the bhaktas, those who understand Bhakti Supreme, they are moving much, much deeper into the spiritual energy. And those who are move forward, those who understand, those who are pure devotees fixed on Krishna and the gopīs and ultimately Radharani, they are completely into the internal energy. So that's how Prabhupada is explaining this hierarchy in terms of these three energies. Now, then Srila Prabhupada moves forward and talks about how the materialistic people are caught up in sense gratification. So there he says, you can recite this verse, well-known verse. Nūnam pramatta kurute vikarma yadindriya pritaya pranoti sadhu manyeta atmanoyam asanapi kleshada sadeha. So here Prabhupada is talking about those karmis who are doing vikarma. So he is referring to them. And what is this? Indriya pritaya pranoti. Those are engaged in sense gratification. So among the karmis, you remember I talked about there are vikarmis and there are karmis. So karmis will refer to those who are doing, those who are, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur takes, pious materialists, and there are impious materialists. So these are two categories. Then those who live like this, they are very far out. And Prabhupada's books are primarily addressing these kind of people, because most materialistic people, most people today are in this category. But gradually they move forward from that category and they come towards Krishna. And then as I quoted earlier, Bahunam Janmanamante. They move from karmis towards becoming jñānīs, then they move towards jnanavan. They become possessors of knowledge. And then as they move forward, they ultimately come to the level of pure devotion. And then what is the speciality of pure devotion to Krishna in the mood of the gopis? What is the speciality? That is actually talked about in the next verse. So let's look at this verse. Before that, we'll look at what Prabhupada quotes in the Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. Yatha Radha Priya Vishnos Tasya Kundam Priyam Tatha Sarva Gopishu Sarvaika Vishnoratyanta Vallabha. So, just as Radharani is supreme dear to Krishna, similarly the Rādhā-kuṇḍa is dear to Krishna. And among all gopis, Sarva Gopishu Sarvaika, Sarva Gopis Saivaika, Sa Evaika, sorry, not Sarvaika, Sa Evaika, she alone, Vishnu Atyanta Vallabha. So, generally, when we were talking about gopis, we normally use the word Krishna, not Vishnu. But when the position is to be talked about, that don't take this materialistically. Don't think of this as just ordinary male-female dealing. So sometimes the word Vishnu is also used. Now Prabhupada gives an interesting way of referring to this. This is verified in a quotation from Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Uttarkhand 45, as quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So now if we see, Chaitanya Charitamrita is describing what? The pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Now, what Chaitanya Charitamrita, this is an interesting analysis. For example, now Chaitanya Charitamrita is being spoken. Chaitanya Charitamrita was written by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. This was written much later. In fact, most of the Goswami's books were written, most of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's biographies were written, and the last book to be written was Chaitanya Charitamrita. So now what happens, the way it is quoted, sometimes it may appear a little confusing. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking a particular verse, and then Prabhupada says that this verse is from the Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is quoting the verse, and the verse is from Laghu Bhagavatamrita. So now Laghu Bhagavatamrita was written after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke it. So what is actually historical chronology? Are you understanding the problem here? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke it first, and then Prabhupada is saying this is from Laghu Bhagavatamrita, this is from Brihad Bhagavatamrita, this is from this book, that book. Now those books all came later. So then who is quoting whom over here? So there are three different understandings of this. First is that there are many verses, especially, what is that book which contains many verses, compilation of many verses? Any beautiful verses are compiled together? No. That is what is compiled by the Goswamis. No. What is compiled by Rupa Goswami? How do I forget the name? Okay, I'll get the name as we move forward. So what has happened is there were many unreferenced verses which are in general circulation. And sometimes in the Vaishnava songbook also you will see that anonymous. Who is this? Padyavali. Good. Padyavali. Yes. I just forgot the name. Thank you. So Padyavali is a compilation by various authors, various Vaishnavas prior to the Goswami, and the Goswami just have compiled it together. So some of these verses Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is quoting, they have been spoken long before. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaks it, and then that is put in the written form in a particular book. Say in Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, or whatever. The other is that actually those verses were composed by Śrī Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he spoke them while instructing the Goswamis, and or whoever is instructing, while talking with Ramananda Rai or whoever. And then they are also quoted by the Acharyas, by Rupa Goswami or whoever, in their particular book. And that's how, when Prabhupada is talking, he's just offering not a reference, he's offering a correlation. So that means, okay, this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking, and this is also spoken by the Goswamis. And thirdly, some verses are actually, whenever the scriptures report a conversation, it's not that the scriptures report a literal conversation. Sridhar Swami, right in the beginning in his Bhagavatam commentary, he mentions, for example, if the Ramayana is going on. Now, the Ramayana is in Sanskrit. So, when the Vanaras are talking, are the Vanaras speaking in Sanskrit? Not necessarily. Or for that matter, the Lord Ram is talking with Guha, or Lord Ram is talking with how am I forgetting? Jatayu, sorry. With Jatayu, or with the Rakshasas. Now, do all of them speak Sanskrit? Not necessarily. Or for that matter, even if you go, Chaitanya Charitamrita is Bengali. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes to South India, he is meeting Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And he is meeting Venkat Bhatta Goswami. He is meeting all those Goswamis. Obviously, they don't know Bengali. They are from South India. So, or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes to Udupi. And Udupi, he is having a discussion with the Madhva Brahmanas. So now, they obviously don't know Bengali. So that conversation was in Sanskrit. But when a book is written in a particular language, it will be put in that particular language. So Sridhar Swami explains that not everything, that we cannot take everything. It's not necessary that everything that is spoken in the scripture was spoken originally literally as it is. So there is, and moreover, if you see, most of these books are written in poetic form. So now we can say Bhagavad Gita is Krishna's word. So Krishna is the supreme poet. That is fine. But the whole Mahabharata is in a poetic form. So is it that Duryodhana is also a poet and Dushasana is also a poet? Even when Dushasana is disrobing Draupadi, he is speaking in poetry at that time? No, obviously not. When Karna is insulting Draupadi, he is also speaking poetry at that time? No. So the scriptures are not necessarily literalistic accounts of what has happened. But because those who write the scriptures, they are learned seers. So they ensure that the essential meaning is preserved. And not only is the essential meaning is preserved, especially certain contexts where certain, for example, say Indra is spoken, Panditamanina. So now those where the acharyas have analyzed elaborately, so those are either literal conversations or they are also, because Vyasadeva has reported them, they are pregnant with meaning which can be analyzed further. So this third possibility is that this is Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's contextualization to further explain what has been spoken. If we see, as I mentioned, in Chaitanya Charitamrita there is one chapter which describes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions to Rupa Goswami. And we know that they spoke for how many days? 10 days. How many days? 10 days. Sanatana Goswami? 2 months. So now, obviously what is spoken in 10 days will not come in one chapter. Even if one lecture we take, one lecture transcription goes for such a long time, something 10 pages, 15 pages, 20 pages. So what Krishna's scripture is condensed thing. It's not an elaborated thing. So it's condensed. So like that, these are the understandings of how these verses have come together over here. Let's go to the last verse now. Any questions about this till now? Yes. Okay. Okay, how do the monkeys have such elevated consciousness? Well, first thing is that if you look at the hierarchy given in the, I think, the Padma Puran, the Vanaras, we said we should not mistake the monkeys that we see today and the Vanaras to be the same. Vanaras are a special species. They are called as celestial apes. In the cosmic hierarchy, the Vanaras are higher than Manavas. Now, this does not mean that all the Vanaras who were there in the Vanara Sena are of the same level. See, there were special Vanaras who were actually the gods who had come in Vanara form. We know Vali was who? Surya. And Sugriva was? Indra. Indra? Sorry, Vali, Sugriva is? Sugriva is Surya, Vali is? Yeah. Sugriva is Surya, correct. Sugriva is son of Surya. So basically they have manifested over there. So, when the Devatas and the Danavas, when they have to come to this world, and there is this warfare that happens, sometimes spies penetrate into another enemy's kingdom to try to penetrate into the army. So, when the Devatas and Danavas have to penetrate into the earth to conquer the earth, they don't just penetrate ordinarily, they penetrate through the womb. They come in the womb and then they enter into the Manava Loka and then they try to conquer. So Manava means the earth, whichever species they are coming in. So first of all, some of the Vanaras are Devatas who have come. Secondly, the Vanaras in general are a higher species, and not everybody who is in the Vanara Sena belongs to celestial. There are also ordinary apes who are there. That's why we see that when they had to jump across to Lanka, ordinary apes could not do that. So Angada said, I can do it, but I am not sure whether I will be able to come back. And Hanuman was told that you can do it. So even among the Vanaras there is a hierarchy. But there are Manavas who are special because they are higher level. Because they are in the cosmic hierarchy only higher. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, Jatayu also, if we see, although he's a vulture, but he's not an ordinary vulture. He has that special power that he could practically fly all the way to the heavens. He went near the sun and then that's how he got burnt. So it's not that all vultures at that time had that capacity. No, there are some which are special. So the consciousness of all animals was not necessarily elevated at that time. If all animals have human consciousness, then there's no difference between humans and animals, isn't it? And if we look at other places also in the Ramayana, when they are going to the forest. So at that time they talk about Ram and Sita. They're talking about the birds, how beautiful they are. It's not that they're talking with the birds at that time. So there are different species at different levels of consciousness, but these are special souls who are playing special roles in the Lord's pastimes. Okay. Yes. Okay. So if karmis and jñānīs are in the hierarchy, where are the yogis? So actually, as I mentioned, in general, there are these three margas that I talked about. Karma marga, jnana marga and yoga marga. Sorry, bhakti marga. And similarly, we see in the Bhagavad Gita also, we say this first section is karma to bhakti, last section is jnana to bhakti, and the middle section is bhakti. So, the Ashtanga Yoga Marga, in general, if we see it, half of it, Yam, Niyam, Asana, Pranayam, they can be done even while one is doing karma. Yam, just like, even as devotees, we are living in cities, we also do yogasanas. It's not that to do yogasanas, one has to go to the forest. When Prabhupada said that if one wants to do yoga, one should go to the forest and one should, that is, if one is doing yoga as a sadhana for attaining spiritual perfection. Then later on, when it comes to Patyahar, one has to set out the senses, so one has to go to the forest. So the yoga, the first part of it falls within karma. And the later part of it is analogous to jnana. That's why we see that Krishna says, Arukshor munir yogam karma karanamuchyate. And yoga rudhasya tasyaiva shamaha karanamuchyate. Aruruksha. In the initial stages, karma is the means for advancement. And the Acharyas explain their commentary, initial stages means yam, niyam, asana, pranayam. So at that time, one keeps doing karma. So one is doing one's prescribed duties. At the same time, one does some asanas, one does some pranayam, one follows yam, niyam. And then later on, shamaha karanamuchyate. Shamaha means one becomes inactive. And one turns inwards. And then shucha udeshe patisthapya sthiramasana mahatmana. Go out in the jungle and sit in one place and absorb oneself. So the path of yoga is like a composite of the elements of karma and jnana. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what is the hierarchy in the 5 potent forms of devotional service? No. As I said that there are many holy places. So there can be hierarchy among the holy places also. So Rādhā-kuṇḍa is the highest. There are many scriptures. Scripture study is also potent, but even the Bhagavatam is the highest. So like that, there are very holy names. We know that 1,000 names of Vishnu is equal to 1 name of Ram, and then 3 names of Ram are equal to 1 name of Krishna. So like that, there is a hierarchy among them also. But the purpose of the hierarchy is not to minimize something. The purpose of the hierarchy is to inspire us to take shelter of Krishna. That's why when Prabhupada was, I think I discussed this earlier, that if somebody says that 1 name of Krishna is equal to 3 names of Ram, then why do we have to chant the Hare Krishna mantra which involves Ram also? They just chant Krishna, Krishna only. Isn't it? No. Why? Because our purpose when we chant is not a mathematical calculation of profit. It is our devotional intention to please. So we'll please by acting according to the guidance of the Acharyas. So our Acharyas, Śrīla Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told us to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That's why we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But in terms of understanding rasa, we can analyze and we can talk about this hierarchy. Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, it is there. So I said also that among the deity worship, there can be various forms of the deity which can be worshipped. But the worship of Krishna is the form of Krishna, and especially Kishore Krishna. That is the highest. I mentioned that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talks to Raghupati Upadhyaya. Yes. Yeah. I think those two only. Bhagavad Sandarbha and then in Gita commentary. Vedanta Sutra also, Govinda Bhashya also talks about it. I think third chapter. I don't remember the adhyaya within that, but third, it talks about it. Okay. Yes. Little loudly. Yeah. What about? Well, is there a hierarchy within the 5 potent forms of devotional service? There is a conversation between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sarvam Bhattacharya, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says the chanting of the holy names is the most important. And we take initiation vow for chanting. We don't take initiation vow for deity worship. We don't take initiation vow for hearing Bhagavatam. But again, the purpose of it's not a sometimes when we get a hierarchy, that which is the highest we consider this is only important, and others are not important. Sorry? Yeah, it's not that others are banned. It actually others also have to be done. When Radha Maharaj asked about this, why don't we take an initiation vow for reading Prabhupada's books, reading Shastra? So Maharaj said, do you take an initiation vow that you will eat meals every day? It's implicit. It is just as we cannot take vows for everything. So the chanting of the holy names is the Yuga Dharma. So in that sense, it's the most important. But we cannot just neglect other things. Yes. We'll complete the last verse, then we'll take that. Okay. There's not much to discuss in the last verse, but we'll discuss this. Can we turn on the lights? Both that light and this light? So Kṛṣṇa. Okay. This one. Okay, fine. कृष्णस्योच्चै प्रणयवसति प्रेयसीभ्योऽपि राधा कुण्डं चास्य मुनिभिरभितस्तादृक् एव व्यधायि मुनिभिरभितस्तादृक् एव व्यधायि यत्प्रेष्ठैरप्यलम् असुलभं किं पुनर्भक्तिभाजाम् तत्प्रेमेदं सकृदपि सारः स्नातुराविष्करोति. So in this last verse of the Updeshamrit, Krishna's ochai pranayavasati. Pranayavasati means object of love. So Krishna has many objects of love, uchai, and all of them are very dear to Krishna. But among them, preyasibhyo piradha. So among all these damsels, who are all very dear to Krishna, Radharani is the topmost. Kundam chasya munibhir abhitas tadruk eva vyadhai. And similarly, her kunda is also very dear. And therefore the Munibhi, the great sages talk about this, Vedhai, they describe it. And yet Preshthir Apyalavam Asulabham Kim Punar Bhakti Bhajam. So Sulabha means easily obtained. Yet Alava Asulabham, that which is not very easily obtained. Service to this dham is not easily obtained. It is very difficult to obtain that. Tat premedam sakritapisar saraha snatur avishkaroti. So, if somebody gets an opportunity to this to render service over there, to bathe in the holy kund, then avishkaroti. Love will arise spontaneously and it will go to the highest level. Now, we talk about Srila Prabhupada's purport. Prabhupada talks about how Rādhā-kuṇḍa is exalted because it belongs to Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī. And then he says, he should at least, in the middle of the second paragraph, he should at least take a bath in the lake as many times as possible. This is the most important item in the execution of devotional service. And Prabhupada quotes Bhaktivinoda Thakur saying how this is the highest, this is the most select place for the gopis. And then Prabhupada quotes here, later Bhaktivedanta Swami Thakur also, that even great sages and devotees like Narada and Sanaka did not get the opportunity to come to Radha-kuṇḍa to take their baths. So now, this raises a few issues which I would like to address. First of all, we say that what do we mean by the rarity? What is so rare? Krishna also says that Sudurdarsham Rupam, that this form of mine which you are seeing, O Arjuna, it is very, very rare to see. Deva apyasrupasya nittam darshana kankshinaha. Even the devatas, they find it very difficult to understand this form and they are very eager to see it. Now, if we see in the Bhagavatam itself, the devatas only go and pray to Vishnu that please, there are the demons are disrupting, please come and descend. And then when they're in the womb, when Krishna is in the womb of Devi, at that time there is the Garbhastuti chapter, where the devatas are coming and praying to Vishnu. Okay, praying to the Lord in the who is the womb, that please deliver us. So then, yet we see the same devatas. What happens? In the 13th chapter, Brahma is there leading the devatas in both cases, in the Garbhastuti as well as the Purush Sukta prayers which are offered earlier. But then in 13th chapter, that same Brahma gets bewildered. And then from the 23rd to 27 chapters, 24 to 27 chapters, Indra gets bewildered. So how is it that the same devatas who have prayed to the Lord and they have prayed both twice, how do they get bewildered? Because Krishna is a very intimate form of the Supreme Lord. Krishna is a very intimate form. That means the devatas are praying, they are praying to Vishnu. And even when Krishna comes, when the Lord decides to incarnate, and when he comes in the womb, at that time, they are expecting this to be Vishnu to come. And they are praying to Vishnu. So, even for the devatas, the form of Krishna is not so easily known. Because Krishna is the intimate form of God, and that's why we see in the Rig Veda, in the Vedas in general, Vishnu is mentioned, but Krishna is not mentioned so often. So, even for the devatas, the form of Krishna is very rare. And what happens in Brahmaji, when he sees, oh, how is this boy has killed Aghasur, how is it possible? So he becomes surprised, and what does he do? He tries to test. And then later on he understands, this is Krishna, this is the Supreme Lord. So, similarly, what happens is the madhurya of Krishna is so great that the Aishwarya of Krishna gets covered by Yogamaya for the intimate devotees. That means the Vrajavasis, they don't consider Krishna to be God because the madhurya is so great for them. And therefore the madhurya covers the Aishwarya. But that happens in a different way for others. That because of the intimacy, the devatas also don't realize the glory. Don't realize that, okay, this is Krishna, this is the Supreme Lord. They don't realize this. And that's why Deva apyasya rupasya nittam darshana kankshinaha. The devatas are eager to see. They don't get to see this form. So, what is important is not just seeing Krishna. In the famous pastime of Mukunda, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gets displeased with him and says, I will not see this Mukunda for how many lifetimes? 10 million lifetimes, 1 crore lifetimes. I will not see him only. Then after that, when he says, oh, soon I will see, just after so many lifetimes. And generally this is the place where we stop this pastime. How much was his faith? But then what happens thereafter? Then after that he offers prayers when he is ushered in the presence of the Lord. And in those prayers he says, I am very grateful to you, my Lord, that you have allowed me to see you. But actually seeing you is not the really important thing. Because even the demons saw you. It says Kamsa saw you, and what is his desire? He wanted to kill you. So, what is important is not just seeing you, but seeing you with devotion, with an understanding of who you are, and with an attraction of the heart. So, Rādhā-kuṇḍa is there, but to understand the glory of Rādhā-kuṇḍa and then take bath in it, that is special. So, that's why we may say, what is so special about bathing in Rādhā-kuṇḍa? Anybody can go and take a bath in Rādhā-kuṇḍa. Yes, going and taking a bath in Rādhā-kuṇḍa is itself purifying. But understanding the glory of Radha-kuṇḍa and then taking a bath, that is a completely different level of potency there in it. So that's why the bathing in Radha-kuṇḍa is special. And we discussed earlier about the holy name also. The holy name is always there. But then depending on the attentiveness with which we chant, depending on the intensity with which we chant, we will accordingly get the results. So Radha-kuṇḍa is special. But the speciality is not just in going there and taking bath. The speciality is in developing the right consciousness by which we take bath. And that right consciousness is developed by the mood of service. So Srila Prabhupada would say that the temples of ISKCON are in Vaikuntha. Why? We may say that they are just a geographical extension within the material world itself. But actually, there is a Vaikuntha mood that is to be cultivated, that can be gradually cultivated. And as this mood gets cultivated, then one enters into Vrindavan. One doesn't go at the surface to Vrindavan. So, we see that Satatam Kirtayanto Mam Yatantascha Drudavrataha. It's interesting, this verse in 9.30, this is 9.14, 9.13 Mahatma Anastu Mam Partha. So, like earlier I was talking about karma and jnana and karma. So, Mahatma Anastu Mam Partha, this is talking about the understanding. How these two verses talk about the characteristics of the pure devotee. So, Mahatma Anastu Mam Partha talk how the devotees understand that there is nothing apart from Krishna. Bhajanti ananya manaso gyatva bhutadimovyayam. Ananya manaso. There is no distraction for them. They understand. The mind is fixed. So, in terms of their internal characteristics, in terms of their conception or contemplation, that is talked about 9.13. 9.14, what is talked about? Their action. They glorify Krishna and yatanta shudrudavrata. They endeavor with great determination. So now, what is the need for the devotees, especially those who are pure devotees, who are ananya manaso? What is the need for them to endeavor with great determination? Normally we say we have to endeavor because our mind and senses are running here and there, and we have to drag the mind and senses back and focus them on Krishna. But yatanta shudrudavrataha, why is that required for the pure devotees? There are multiple understandings of this. In the material world, if you have to do anything, material world is a place of struggle. So Prabhupada, he was a pure devotee, but when he had to preach, he had to struggle. There are so many difficulties that he had to go through. So to get anything done in the material world, there is yatanta shudrudavrataha. And through that endeavor, the conditioned souls get, or the sadhakas get instructed of how one can serve Krishna. And same way for the pure devotees also. In the spiritual world. In the spiritual world is their endeavor, as I mentioned earlier, that there are kalpatarus. There are desire trees, but when Radharani has to cook for Krishna, he doesn't say, desire tree, just give me this. No, I want to feed it. What does she do? She personally cooks. I think the Vrajariti Chintamani described that Radharani cooks simultaneously on 50 stoves. She's in great anxiety. I have to cook this item, this item, this item, this item, this item. And all of them she's in anxiety. So, there, yatanta shudrudavrataha. The endeavor is to please Krishna. And that anxiety is taken up so that one can please Krishna. So, even the whole aprākṛta-bhāva, the aprākṛta-bhāva basically involves what? In one sense, it creates obstacles. Because the gopīs are not Krishna's consorts directly in Vrindavan. So, what happens? There are obstacles. And what do the obstacles do? The obstacles lead to an increase in the intensity of the devotion. Just like there is an elephant, that elephant has strength. But how much strength the elephant has, people may not know, even the elephant may not know. But when the elephant is, say, extremely thirsty or is extremely eager for something, and then the elephant is shackled, is tied with very tight ropes or something, and the elephant pulls. And then what happens? It's tied to a giant tree and the elephant pulls and the whole giant tree comes down. So what happens? The elephant itself may not have known that I have the power to bring down this tree. But when there is that, the shackles are there and there is a desire to break through the shackles, then there are two things that happen. There's internal realization of the strength and there is external expression of the strength. Internal realization means the elephant itself comes to know, oh, I have this strength. It did not know, but it suddenly comes to know. And then there is external expression. People know, this tree was so big, but this elephant has brought it down. The same way, The gopis have intense devotion for Krishna. But the Parakiya arrangement creates obstacles. And through those obstacles, the gopis' internal rasa gets more and more intensified. Now when they are separate, rather, there is a verse in the Padyavali which says, Radha says that, Krishna, I prefer separation from you to union with you. Why? Because in union, I see you only in one place. But in separation, I see you everywhere. So what is happening? Actually, in the separation, there is greater intensification of the absorption. So there is greater, like the internal realization, and there is external expression. External expression means what? The gopis are ready to give up everything for Krishna's sake. See, at one level, when we say that Esham Tvantagatam Papam Jananam Punya Karmanam, but that for becoming fixed in bhakti, we have to give up adharma. We have to give up sin. We should give up sin. That is very good. That has to be given up. But the highest level of devotion is that for the sake of Krishna, we give up not only adharma, we are ready to give up dharma also. For the sake of Krishna, we give up immorality. We stop speaking lies, we stop gambling, we stop meat eating. All that is good. But a higher level of devotion is that for the sake of Krishna, one is ready to give up dharma also. So one is ready to give up everything for the sake of Krishna. So the gopis, through their madhurya rasa, in the Parakiya bhava, they demonstrate this. Pati sutanvaya bhratra bandhavan ati villangyate antyachyutagataha gati vidastava udgita mohitaha kitava yoshitas kastya jñānīs. So the gopis are praying that we have given a pati sutanvaya bhratra bandhavan, all our relatives. Now for a woman, her chastity is considered to be extremely important. The woman is ready to give up her life to protect her chastity. And we see the Mahabharata, for protecting the chastity or for the insult to the Draupadi, there is a war that is fought. So for a woman, her chastity is considered to be one of her most important dharmas. The gopis never actually became unchaste, but even for a woman to have a suspicion of unchastity, that is also a great loss. But what the gopis demonstrate is, they are ready to give up that also. Even if people consider us to be unchaste, doesn't matter. They are ready to give up everything for the sake of Krishna. So this understanding that one should give up not only adharma, but one should also give up dharma, that is something which is not so easy to understand. But there are some renditions of the Bhagavad Gita in which this verse, Sarva dharman parityajya, some people have changed it and they say Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Just put a before that. Why they say? How can God tell you to give up dharma? So actually what it is Sarva dharman parityajya. No, but it is Sarva dharman parityajya only. Why? Because the idea is we give up the bad for God, but we also give up the good for God, if it is required. It's not that we have to give up God and then become bad. No. We have to give up the good for the best. So the mode of goodness is very good. Dharma, morality, all of them are very good. But they also have to be given up ultimately for the sake of Krishna. So we see in the 23rd chapter of the 10th canto as contrasted with the 22nd chapter as contrasted with the 29th chapter. 22nd chapter is the Yagic Brahman Patnis. They bring the 22nd or 23rd chapter, I think. So they bring they offer food to Krishna. And when they offer food to Krishna, what happens? Krishna tells them, very good. You surrendered to me, now please go back. And they protest, but they insist, please go back. And they go back. And then what happens when the gopis come to Krishna? Krishna also tells them, good, you have come, now please go back. What happens? The gopis say, how can we go back? So, of course, Yagic Brahman Patnis are also very exalted devotees. But in a comparative sense, the gopis' devotion is unparalleled. And even when Krishna tells them to go back, the gopis refuse to go back. So they agree that yes, whatever Krishna tells instructions about how a wife should be chaste to the husband. And he says, yes, what you're saying is true. But ultimately, all dharma is meant for your sake. So it is this giving up everything, the bad and the good, for the sake of God. That is the ultimate revelation of the Vedic scriptures, and that is what is considered to be the highest summit of devotion within Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And that is what Rādhā-kuṇḍa points to, and that is what Updeshamrut glorifies as the highest, and that is what Srila Prabhupada has in a progressive way given to us through the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanande. Thank you. So we have a few minutes. Yes. Loudly. Okay. So the question is that by the union of Aruna and Indra, Sugriva and Vali are born. So now they are devatas, so how are Vanaras born to them? Yeah. So actually it's a long story. Aruna actually is a charioteer of Surya, and he takes on the form of, if he takes a female form so that he can enter into the assembly of Indra, I comes as Aruni. And there is a union between Indra and Aruni. So now there are 2-3 points important to understand. If we look at, I think this is the 6th chapter of the 6th canto. It is titled 6th or the third, one of the chapters, early chapters in the 6th canto. It is the progeny of the daughter of or daughters of Daksha. So there it is described how from the daughters of Daksha various species are born. So in the purports to this, Acharyas explain that actually the devatas are not bound by the laws which manavas are bound by. That means in the normal reproductive species, the humans will get humans, the animals will beget animals. But the devatas, they are given extra powers because they have to do certain services. So at that particular time, within the procreation and population of the universe, in order to get other species, the daughters of Daksha are given the power by which they can beget other species also. So that devatas in general have that power. And in this particular case, actually there is another story over here. There was this Vanar Raj Riksharaj, who was doing austerity for satisfying Indra to get sons from him. So what happened is Indra, when he got these children, so then he decided that Riksharaj is anyway praying for blessings to get children, so I'll give these children. And that way he gave those children, and he had the power by which he could make those children into a form that was appropriate so that they could be the sons of Riksharaj. That's how they got the Vanara form. So firstly, they have the capacity to give progeny according to time, place, circumstance. According to whichever species is required. And in this particular case, according to the context, they give them the Vanara stage. Okay. So, yes, one last question. Loudly.
Yeah. That in Mahabharata is Handsome Krishna. That one side is Kansa is living in Mathura, and Mahabharata is it's near that the Delhi that happening. Hastinapur. So, what is the connection? They are not knowing Krishna. How they are not knowing this? What activity is going on?
Okay. So the question is that we say that the rulers of Mahabharata war, so Bhishma or whoever there, they were in Mathura, they were in Hastinapur, and then Kamsa was ruling in Mathura. So if Kamsa had conquered everyone, Kamsa was the ruling emperor, Then was he ruling over Bhishma also, or was he ruling over the Yadu dynasty also? Or why did the Yadu dynasty not intervene to stop Kamsa? Whatever. So actually, there are two different points to understand over here. First is that the Kshatriyas, they acted according to time, place, circumstance. So the first reference in the Mahabharata, the entry of Krishna in the Mahabharata happens in Draupadi Swayamvar. That is the first time. Before that, there is no direct description of Krishna's pastimes. And the first meeting of the Pandavas and Krishna also happens after Draupadi Swayamvar only. Before that, they don't have any meeting. Now, there is a description of Krishna in detail in the Harivamsha, which is the appendix to the Mahabharata, where Krishna's pastimes are described. So, in every particular book, there is a particular focus that is there. So, when that focus is there, all the stories are told from that focus. So, now the Mahabharata's focus is on the Kuru dynasty and on the Pandavas. The Bhagavatam's focus is on Krishna. So the stories are told from the point of view of a particular focus. That's the first point to understand. Now, if we look at the historical intersections between the two, if you look at the Bhagavatam, it's primarily chapters 70 to 75 in the Bhagavatam, roughly 70 to 75, where there is an intersection between the Mahabharata and the Bhagavatam, where the Pandavas, the Rajasuya Yajna and others are described. Few other chapters also it is there, but not much. So what happens is, in the Bhagavatam, when the glory of Krishna is to be described, so at that time, the demons whom Krishna kills, they are talked about most. And in the Mahabharata, when the glory of the Pandavas is to be described, and that particular dynasty is described, then the glory of those demons whom they were countering is described. So, Kamsa, when he usurped the rule, before that there was Maharaj Ugrasen, and they were righteous rulers. So that's why they were righteous, and then the Kuru dynasty was living accordingly. Now after that, Bhishma was the ruler. Actually, Bhishma never became the ruler, but Bhishma was like the caretaker. So there was Vichitravirya. So when Maharaj Pandu was there, when Maharaj Shantanu was there, Bhishma, he was a very powerful ruler at that time. But the Pandavas never actually, not the Pandavas. So Vichitravirya was also a very powerful ruler, but he did not rule for very long. Shantanu was a powerful ruler, but there's no description of he performing any Ashwamedha Yajna or anything like that. And after that, when Vichitravirya was there, so after Pandu, Vichitravirya was there. After Vichitravirya, Pandu was supposed to become the king, but then Pandu lived for some time, then he went to the forest, and Dhritarashtra was the king. So there was actually no very strong king. So that's why when Pandu was there, Pandu first he said that I will go around and conquer, and I will bring things under control. So Pandu did that. But then after that, Pandu's mind went more towards living in the forest, and then he was cursed, and then he left to the forest. So during that, now this time, when this was happening, when Pandu went to the forest, at that time neither the Pandavas nor the Kauravas have been born. And when Pandavas in the forest, at that time, the rule was in Dhritarashtra's hands. And without Dhritarashtra taking initiative, Bhishma, he basically acted as a protector. But Bhishma did not himself do anything to expand the kingdom. That is the initiative of the king. So, Kamsa, he went around consolidating everywhere else, but there's no description of Kamsa performing any Rajasuya Yajna or anything like that, where the Kuru dynasty will have to specifically give tributes to him. So, generally, if the king at a particular place is not very strong, then that king will not attack other kingdoms unless there is a direct threat to their kingdom. So Kamsa, he subordinated everyone else, but he left the Kuru dynasty as it is because he did not want to provoke Bhishma. On the other hand, because Bhishma was not the direct ruler and Dhritarashtra never took much initiative in ruling, so they did not intervene in Kamsa's affairs. Now, from the geographical point of view, we say that Mathura and Hastinapur may be very close. But there are several other factors. At that time, the prosperity was enormous. And that's why, although geographically the things may be close, but they were independent kingdoms. And they did not overlap much in terms of administration. So, the Pandavas had their kingdom and Kamsa had his kingdom. Now, if you see, Kamsa's reign of terror was not for very long. Kamsa was definitely a powerful ruler and he was going to create disruptions. But basically, it was the begetting of the 8 children. And then after that, Krishna came, basically he lived in Vrindavan only for about 5 to 7 years. Different acharyas give slightly different meanings. So during that time, because Kamsa did not provoke the Pandava, the Kuru dynasty, and the Kuru dynasty did not have an aggressive ruler, or assertive ruler at that time. So that's why from neither party there was intervention. Clear?